Hey there, it's Mazzy. It's the music stupid. This is number 40 of these that you've had to sit through. But I just pull five records, give or take, from my collection, and I showcase them. Sometimes some that are maybe esoteric, some very commercial. So it's not really about showing just things that you don't know about. There's always someone who knows about any one of these or more of these albums. And also, I think there's a lot of, except for one here, acoustic based, a lot of moody acoustic music because I'm about to switch over my turntable and a new cart. And I'm going from a Riga RP8 to a Riga P8. There is a world of difference. I got the P8 several months ago as a demo. I don't know if you saw that video. I did at Gig Harbor Audio south of Seattle, southwest of Seattle, and I got a very good price on that. And I just received the card that I'm going to update. So there'll be a future episode about an updated gear room tour as I let that kind of break in. But I've been listening to a lot of acoustic music because I like to kind of hear the sounds, the openness of acoustic guitars and that moodiness of it too. But then again, yes, on the other side, I'll go to something tighter. You know, I this isn't included in the five here, so you're going to get a bonus. But this is, I don't know if this is a third Jim Carroll record, maybe. Jim Carroll, his most notable authorship is Basketball Diaries, the novel that was turned into a film. Leonardo DiCaprio. We lost him. I saw him when his first album came out at the Savoy Tivoli in San Francisco. Kind of a post-punk thing going. His song that got some airplay on some stations, People Who Die Die, song called Catholic Boy. But I think might have been his third or fourth Jim Carroll band. And I just pulled this out because of promo. And this is really well recorded. And it's good songs. It's got a tightness to it. So this is the kind of record too tonight to test out on a good stereo to get some really kind of dry bite of your drums and bass. And I think it's like a lovely album. Unfortunately, someone else we lost way too early. Okay, so it's the music stupid. I want to show this record first. This is Emmylou Harris, Red Dirt Girl. I've been a fan of her since her first album, even before her Pieces of the Sky debut album in 1975, I believe that was. Her on the two solo albums by Graham Parsons, Grievous Angel and GP. And just loved her vocals on that. And then her first album was given to me as a promo by my manager at the time, someone who became my good friend, Vernon, and he really turned me on to her, and we went to see her at the boarding house when she had the hot band with Jim Burton and Glendy Harding and who else? Rodney Crowell, just great. But she really had a transformation. Obviously, she's country, kind of folk country, a little rock, but more on the folk country singer-songwriter thing. And almost all of her songs, with some exceptions, over the course of those country-esque records, were not written by Emmylou Harris. She would co-write a song here and there for many years. Some records are more country bluegrass in a way, or newgrass, I should say, and just some beautiful harmonies. She had done her trio records, 2 volumes of that with Linda Ronstadt and Dolly Parton. And then just prior to this, she did an album called Tucson, which is a beautiful record, which deserves a vinyl reissue. It was a duo with Linda Ronstadt. Beautiful record, Tucson. But a couple years before this came out, she really changed it up and made, to me, one of her best records, and a record very different. She teamed up with Daniel Lanois, who produced Wrecking Ball. What an amazing record. What a different record. There's a mood to it. Again, covering a lot of songs, some you know, most of the songs you don't, by a range of other songwriters. But this is a record that is self-produced on Non-Such Records, and this came out after Tucson. And what's wonderful and different about this, I'd say 11 out of the 12 songs she wrote or co-wrote, which is very unusual for Emmylou Harris. She worked with Malcolm Byrne, who was the engineer on Wrecking Ball with Daniel Lanois. So it has some of that moody, dirgy sound which you get. I just love the sound that Daniel Lanois worked with her on that album. I love his recording techniques. He definitely has a sound. People may know him from collaborating with Brian Eno on a lot of the U2 records, that like Unforgettable Fire, that period of U2. And his own solo records are just lovely. He plays a pedal steel, and it's just a beautiful series of records on his own too. But another record that I love that he produces, Teatro, a great sounding record in this vein a little bit for Willie Nelson. But this song has a really kind of mood to it. Some personal songs. There's a great song, sort of a veteran type, was a World War II song, Bang the Drum Slowly, obviously. You'd know that from the novel and book, but it's not really based on that. But just a lovely, lovely record. So check this out, Emmylou Harris's Red Dirt Girl. It seems more personal than a lot of the other records, and it's not an upbeat record like Elite Hotel or the first few records she did for Warner Brothers Records. Emmylou Harris. Next is the one record that I have that is a little more rock and roll, and it's the fourth record by Ian Hunter, and this is You're Never Alone with a Schizophrenic. I love this record. Co-produced with Mick Ronson, and again, this is just a fun record. It's a rock and roll record, not a hard rock record. It's a hard it's rock pop, I would say, record. With some just beautiful songwriting again, and really well recorded. There's a song on here that got a lot of airplay and still gets a lot of airplay near the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of Cleveland, called Cleveland Rocks. This record came out in 1979. 2 years prior to this, he did a single, I think for Columbia then, in the UK only, called England Rocks. So it's the same song, he just changed the lyrics somewhat. And that's on here, and that got a lot of airplay in the States on American radio. Just Another Night was the hit off this, the closest he had. I believe this is his biggest selling solo record. Of course, Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople, all the young dudes. First, they were more of a bar band, had a huge following. I think they were on Columbia Records first, then switched, and David Bowie was at Atlantic, maybe, in this country. I believe David Bowie wrote the song All the Young Dudes and produced that album. Fabulous record. But this is a fun rock and roll record. It's not a groundbreaking record. It kind of closes out the 70s, and it's a good party record as well. Some good ballads on here as well. I like his first solo album. There's a song on his first solo album called, was it 3,000 Miles, which is just a gorgeous, slow song where he talks throughout some of it. But I'm going this week with Ian Hunter's You're Never Alone with a Schizophrenic. Then there is a record which I just think is a fabulous record, and this is Sun Kill Moon. This came out in 2003. This sort of came out of the ashes of the Red House Painters and Mark Koslak led band. Obviously, this could be an extension of the Red House Painters out of San Francisco. He's got that brooding, slow, all his music is very this is like slowcore. This is like, indie folk, dirge music, just alt indie, alt country, no, alt indie, alt everything you want it, whatever you want to call it. Mark Koslak's record, Red House Painters, are amongst my favorite records. Staying away from the personal side of he went through during the Me Too thing, but I still love his music, and I saw Red House Painters probably 6-7 times in San Francisco while they were putting out those great albums. But this was put out on Rough Trade. Again, a record. I think they were working on this right after, there's a whole story of the final Red House Painters. It took forever to put out. 4AD, I believe, put those records out. But this is a fantastic, moody record again. Just love everything about this record. Anyway, all the Mark Koslak songs, I love his voice. Everything is so slow and so ethereal. Slowcore is obviously perfect description for this record. 2003, Sun Kil Moon, Ghosts of the Great Highway, which runs along the Pacific Ocean up from Geary Boulevard and the Cliff House down the Great Highway towards the San Francisco Flyshacker Zoo in San Francisco along the Pacific Ocean. Next is, I pulled 2 records by these artists because these are the only 2 this husband and wife team did together. But the main one I want to show is this record from 1968. This is Jeff and Maria Muldaur, Jeff and Maria Pottery Pie. She was actually Maria D'Amato at the time. These 2, I guess in the late 60s, were roommates with Joe Boyd up in near Boston, I think near Harvard and Cambridge. And Joe Boyd would expatriate, move to UK, bring a bunch of blues artists producing these American blues artists in the UK. He would eventually co-open the UFO Club in London, the UFO Club called UFO, and produce Pink Floyd's first single. Of course, Joe Boyd was the American producer, ended up producing many at least, of the great folk rock bands of the UK in the late 60s, like Fairport Convention, incredible string band, Nick Drake, just into the 70s, a lot of that wonderful folk music that came out. But he worked with Jeff Muldaur later, and he would produce, when they got married, you probably know one of the biggest hits was Maria Muldaur's breakout in the 1970s. What was that, 1975 or 6, with Midnight at the Oasis. I love that record. Right, Cooter's on it, Clarence White's on it, Joe Boyd produced that. But these records are bluesy folk. Now, Jeff Muldaur was original member of the Jim Kweskin Jug Band out of the East Coast. Great kind of folky, bluesy, quirky voice too. This record, Pottery Pie, has a song on here. His version of the classic Brazil was used in the Terry Gilliam film, I guess during the, I don't know if it's opening or closing credits. They use this version of Brazil in that film. It's a fantastic version. So there's it's a singer-songwriter album, but more on the bluesy side, very clever, very creative. I love Maria's voice. If you know the songs she did, obviously, Midnight at Oasis on her second album, she did Waitress in a Donut Shop, the Dan Hicks and a Hot Lick song as well. But this is a wonderful record, and these records, I think, were reissued, at least this one, some years ago by Omnivore Records, I think in 2016. But these are my original. These are on Warner Reprise, I think. Just love this record. I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, obviously the Dylan cover as well. And the other album, he was also in the Paul Butterfield Blues Band when they had Better Days, the later period, not the original Paul Butterfield Blues Band, but the 70s incarnation of Paul Butterfield. But this is a wonderful album too. And this came out in 1972, so it took 4 years for them to do another album. This is called Sweet Potato Pie. I would say these 2 records are equally good in different ways. You got great players on here, from Billy Mundy on drums, Amos Garrett on guitar and vocals, of course, Jeff and Maria Muldaur, and this one was produced by Joe Boyd. The first one was not. This is a great album as well. There's a great version of Havana Moon, a really kind of a folky, bluesy version of the Chuck Berry song. Again, if you're going to cover a song, especially a Chuck Berry song, rearrange it, and it's got a little kind of Brazilian rhythm to it, somewhat. A little, not really calypso, but a little bit on that. Sweet Potatoes, Lover Man is a great song on here too. But everything of the blues folk thing on Jeff and Maria Muldaur, worth getting. His solo records too are really good into the 70s and beyond. So wonderful 2 for 2 separate records. And lastly, an artist that is a very favorite of mine. You know, he gets a lot of love on this channel, and that's Warren Zevon, of course. And this is My Rides here. This is a self-produced album. This didn't do a lot. However, it had a quirky novelty song on here called the hockey song, actually Hit Somebody, the hockey song. And it's, he's one of these writers that writes a lot of great things about sports figures. Boom Mancini's written, fighting Bobby Chacon. He did a song called Bill Lee about a pitcher, a baseball pitcher. There's a song on here, Hit Somebody, hockey, about Canadian hockey. And there's a chorus in there about hit somebody and yelling out, and it's David Letterman yelling it out. Of course, he was a regular on the David Letterman show up until he died, and including the final performance. And just to see him, sometimes he'd sit in for Paul Schaefer on the David Letterman show. Letterman was a huge fan. So that's the novelty song on here, which is fun, but the record is so much better. All these songs co-authored by several artists, writers, as well as one song co-written with Hunter S. Thompson. There is Basket Case, Lord Byron's Luggage, McGillicuddy's Reeks, a very Irish kind of jig on that song, and really, really well recorded. Again, self-produced. Right after this is when he was diagnosed with cancer. And the last couple of albums, he writes about death a lot too. And before he even knew he had termination, there's a song on here called My Rides Here he co-wrote, which is kind of like a saying goodbye. You'd think, okay, now it's time. My ride's here, I'm on my way. But he didn't even know it at the time. But he always had sort of that volatile lifestyle with drugs, alcohol, booze, guns. But I highly recommend this record. One of my favorite songs on here, he does Laissez-moi tranquille. It's a Serge Gainsbourg song where he covers, and that's great. But my favorite song on here is called Genius. It's got a wonderful, it's a ballad in a way, a string arrangement, string quartet, beautifully arranged. And he obviously does his own scoring, does his own orchestration, going back from his debut on Asylum Records. That's his second album, but his self-titled album, Frank and Jesse James and the French Inhaler, all those great orchestrations. He was very influenced by Aaron Copland, the composer, and he wrote that. Piano player, guitar player, but piano player. He performed for many years as the music director and band leader for the Everly Brothers on the road before jumping into his own solo career, helped by Jackson Browne on Asylum Records. See how I take this detour to kind of set the stage? Now, some of you, a lot of you may already know that, but if you're new to Warren Zevon, that's a little background. His catalog, he's never made a bad album, but his volatility didn't help him. I saw him 3 times live, and he's fantastic. That record on Giant Records he did, the live 12-string acoustic record for the most part, some piano playing, deserves a vinyl. I don't think it's ever been on vinyl. If it has, it's very limited and probably only in Europe, but that needs an issue. But as I digress, coming full loop, the song on here called Genius with that chamber sort of quartet strings is so lovely. And there's a great lyric, and I'm going to probably misquote it, but it said, Albert Einstein was a ladies' man. He was working on his master plan. He was making out like Charlie Sheen. He was a genius. Great song. Go listen to that song right now. Warren Zevon's My Rides Here. Thanks for watching this episode of It's the Music Stupid. Check out these records. Some of them you know, some of them may be new to you, but it's all about the music stupid. Mazzy loves you.